You've been told a lie. A lie so deeply ingrained it keeps millions of men lost, confused, and powerless in their relationships. You can't understand women, they say, because you're just not one. But what if everything you were told about understanding women is backwards? What if the key isn't feeling what she feels, but seeing what she does? Prepare to unlock a hidden truth that will change how you see women forever. Because the secret to true understanding isn't empathy, it's observation. And once you see it, there's no going back. Every man, at some point, has faced the same frustrating confession. You just don't get her. You can't possibly understand women because you're not one. It's a phrase spoken so casually it feels like an unbreakable truth. An unshakable law written into the very fabric of human relations. It echoes everywhere, from friends, to advice columns, to the voices inside your own head that jump in self-doubt the moment she says something you don't understand. But what if I told you this idea, this assumption, is not only wrong, but a lie? A lie that has been handed down through generations, cleverly disguised as wisdom. Men have been led to believe that empathy, the ability to feel what she feels, is the only key to decoding female mystery. That unless you walk the path of her emotions, you will always be a stranger, an outsider, forever one step behind. It's a story that comforts the world's confusion. It makes sense on the surface. After all, how could you truly understand the emotions that aren't yours to feel? How could you navigate a realm built on feelings that slip away like smoke when you try to grasp them? So many men fall into this trap. They bend, they adapt, they twist themselves trying to feel her feelings. They sacrifice boundaries, they lose themselves in an ocean of emotional interpretation. But here's the brutal truth. That idea, that you must feel what she feels, is a dead end. A mirage. Because feelings are not a map. They are a storm. Unpredictable, shifting, and often contradictory. And here lies the secret they don't tell you. You don't need to feel her feelings to understand what she really wants. You don't need to drift in her emotional chaos to find the compass that guides her desires. What you need is something more powerful and reliable. A clear, cold lens. Observation. Not empathy. Not speculation. The simple, undeniable facts embedded in actions, her behavior. Watch what she chooses, what she rewards, what she pursues. Not what she says in the heat of the moment, not the stories her mind tells herself. Because her actions never lie. Imagine for a moment if every man could see beyond the noise of feelings. If instead of drowning in the unpredictable tides of emotions, he learned to read the still waters beneath, calm, precise, telling truths no words ever could. This is not arrogance or manipulation. It is science. It is the same principle that guides doctors, engineers, even meteorologists. They don't feel the disease or experience the storm firsthand. They observe, analyze patterns, and predict outcomes through facts. If a doctor could only treat cancer by feeling the patient's pain. If a weatherman could only forecast storms by being struck by lightning. We'd be in a world of chaos. Yet men believe that understanding women requires stepping inside their emotional skies. And so, they flounder. But it's not just about understanding her, it's about freeing yourself. Because this lie, that you can't understand her, is a cage. It traps you inside hesitation, confusion, and fear. It makes you walk on eggshells. It makes you question your worth, your intuition, your sanity. What if instead you approached the feminine world as an observer, detached, curious, unshaken? What if you stopped trying to decode cryptic feelings and started cataloging patterns of behavior? This shift, the move from feeling to seeing, is the gateway to clarity. It strips away excuses, misunderstandings, and emotional overwhelm. Because while feelings are chaotic, behavior is consistent. She might say she wants kindness. But time and again, choose the man who challenges her toughness. She might say she wants honesty, but her actions reward mystery and intrigue. This isn't contradiction, it's biology. It's programming. It's the invisible language shaped by millennia, encoded deep in her psyche. And until men learn this language, they will remain outsiders looking in. Caught in the prison of I don't understand her. Forever chasing a ghost called empathy, forever lost in the labyrinth of emotions. But you don't have to be one of them. You don't have to get stuck believing what you can't experience defines your capacity to know. Because understanding women isn't about being a woman. It's about becoming the man who sees clearly, who watches calmly, who learns the unspoken rules in the game without losing himself in the chaos of feelings. This is your invitation to break the lie, to reframe the entire story you've been told. Because once you embrace observation over empathy, everything changes. Your confusion dissolves. Your frustration fades. And for the first time, you begin to truly understand the truth about women. You've been taught to feel your way through a woman's emotions, to put yourself in her shoes, to connect by matching her mood, mirroring her feelings, and tuning into the subtle waves of her heart. This is what empathy is supposed to be, the magic key to unlocking her mind. And for many, it's an alluring idea. Because who wouldn't want to be the man who understands her? Who can sense her joys, her fears, her silent longings? But let me ask you this, have you ever tried to navigate a conversation when feelings change like the wind? One moment she smiles warmly, the next she's distant or upset, and the reason? Elusive. Hidden beneath layers of ambiguity, jargon, and unspoken expectations. When empathy becomes your map, you're sailing a sea of uncertainty. You're guessing, trying to feel what she feels, hoping it's right this time. There's no GPS, no compass. Just guesswork, and sometimes, pain. Now, what if I told you empathy, this much-lauded skill, is actually the worst possible way to understand female psychology? Empathy traps you inside her emotions. It blinds you to the patterns of her behavior. It makes you a prisoner to her moods rather than a master of the situation. You chase emotional waves that ebb and flow, never quite reaching solid ground. Imagine trying to solve an intricate puzzle while the pieces keep changing shape in your hands. No matter how much empathy you pour in, you're trying to understand something that can't be understood through feelings alone. This is where observation becomes your secret weapon. Observation is clear, cold, and unwavering. It's the power to step back, detach, and watch what really happens. Not what is said, not what is felt, but what is done. Because behavior, actions, is measurable, repeatable, predictable. Think about this. Have you ever noticed how people often say one thing but act in a completely different way? Women are no exception. Their words can be crafted, polished, shaped by social expectations or even fear of judgment. But their behavior? It's raw, unfiltered, pure truth. To understand women, you must become like a scientist, detached, objective, relentlessly curious. Watch who she spends time with, who she chooses to click with emotionally, physically, socially. See what she rewards with her attention, affection, and commitment. Empathy often leads to confusion because it encourages you to trust the emotional noise. Observation cuts through that noise like a scalpel. You watch when she says, "I want stability," but repeatedly chooses chaos. You notice when she says, "I want kindness," but gravitates to men who challenge her strength. And this is not a betrayal of emotional sensitivity, this is understanding on a whole new level. Like a chess player who anticipates moves for steps ahead, you learn to see the game behind the words. Empathy ties you to the moment, to the fleeting fluctuations of feeling. Observation frees you to see the pattern, the invisible thread running beneath every interaction. It's the difference between being lost in a storm and reading the weather forecast. Between riding a wild horse blindly and holding the reins firmly, guiding it where you want to go. This doesn't mean you become cold or indifferent. But it means your emotional involvement no longer controls you. You care without being swept away. You connect without drowning in confusion. You transform from a man reacting to female feelings into a man responding to female behavior. And in that transformation lies your power. Because observation doesn't just reveal what women want beneath the surface. It reveals how to give it to them without sacrificing yourself, your boundaries, or your sanity. This is the clarity most men never reach because they are stuck chasing feelings. But if you want lasting respect, genuine attraction, and true understanding, you must choose to observe. You must learn the language of behavior, not feelings. Empathy is a gift when balanced. But observation? It's a strategic superpower. And that power? It's yours to claim. Words. So many words. You've heard them all before: promises, declarations, sweet nothings. I want kindness. I need honesty. I value emotional connection. But if words were truth incarnate, wouldn't the world be a simpler place? Wouldn't your relationships be filled with ease and clarity? Here's a secret most men never realize. Words are cheap. Words are easy. They are crafted to please, to persuade, to protect image. Feelings, too, are powerful, but also fleeting, tangled, and often contradictory. She might declare one thing with passion one moment, yet behave in ways that contradict those very declarations the next. But actions? Actions don't lie. Every choice she makes, every person she spends time with, every moment she rewards with attention and affection, these are the silent echoes of her true desires. Listen closely, because this will change everything. Her behavior, what she actually does, reveals what she wants far more honestly than what she says or even what she feels. Imagine this. A woman says she wants a man who listens to her, respects her vulnerability, and cherishes her. Beautiful words, no doubt. But day after day, you see her drawn to men who are distant, aloof, and emotionally unavailable. Why? Because unconsciously, her biology is tuned to seek qualities that signal strength, status, and genetic fitness, qualities that don't always come wrapped in kindness or vulnerability. She might say she values loyalty, yet she rewards instability. She might say she wants emotional security, yet pursues relationships filled with drama and chaos. The contradiction isn't confusion or deceit, it's a clash between what the conscious mind believes it wants and what the unconscious biology actually craves. This is why so many men are confused. They hear the words. They believe the promises. They rearrange their entire behavior to match these stated desires. And what do they get? Rejection. Frustration. Confusion. Because in striving to meet words and feelings, they miss the real signals, her behavior, her choices. What if instead of reacting to her words, you studied her actions? What if you learned to read the silent language of choice? Who she calls, who she dates, who she returns to again and again, even if it's not the man she claims to want? When you focus on behavior, you see the truth that her words obscure. You see the story her feelings can't tell. Her actions are the footprints she leaves in the sand, trailing back to her unconscious desires, her true priorities. This is the behavioral reality men rarely speak of openly. Women's actions are windows into their souls, often more honest and revealing than words or feelings. So the next time she says one thing, watch what she does. Watch where she invests her time, her energy, her affection. Because in those silent choices lie the answers you're desperately seeking. This insight doesn't make women puzzles to be solved or mysteries to decode. It frees you from blind faith in words and feelings that shift like sand. It gives you a reliable compass, solid ground in uncertain terrain. The moment you start prioritizing her behavior over her words, you gain something invaluable: clarity. You stop chasing illusions. You begin to understand what truly motivates her, what she rewards, what she fears, what ignites her attraction. Actions don't just speak louder than words. They shout. They guide. They demand your attention. And once you learn to listen, you will never be lost in the dark again. Here's a fundamental mistake men often make. They believe that because they cannot feel what a woman feels, they cannot understand what she wants. That her inner emotional world, the storm inside her, is a sacred, sealed fortress inaccessible to anyone who isn't inside it. It sounds logical at first. How can you understand a reality you do not experience? But here's the catch, and it's a game changer. Subjective experience is not the same as objective truth. Feelings, moods, and experiences are personal, fluid, tangled. They belong to the inner world of thoughts and emotions, a place of endless complexity. They are real, but they are not facts. Reality, the truth that governs behavior, choice, and desire, exists independently of what someone feels or believes. Imagine a firefighter rushing into a burning building. He doesn't need to feel the fear or panic of the people trapped inside to rescue them. He doesn't immerse himself in their terror. Instead, he observes the flames, the smoke patterns, the sounds, the behaviors, and acts accordingly. Or take a pilot flying through turbulent skies. She doesn't need to experience the fear a passenger feels. She doesn't allow her judgment to be clouded by subjective panic. She trusts the instruments, the objective data, and navigates safely. The same logic applies to understanding women. You don't have to feel what she feels. You need to observe what she does. Because feelings are often misleading, self-deceptive even. They confuse her as much as they confuse you. Women themselves struggle to understand their own emotions sometimes. They can't step outside their subjective experience to see the patterns that shape their desires and motivations objectively. The eye cannot fully see itself. This means taking women's self-reports at face value is dangerous. Not because they are dishonest, but because they are limited by the boundaries of their awareness. Their conscious mind makes sense of feelings with narratives that often conceal deeper, unconscious programming. It's like trying to read a complex map with only half the keys. It looks confusing, conflicting, and chaotic. But when you shift your perspective from subjective immersion to objective detachment, truth emerges clearly. You start to see through the fog of feelings, past the story she tells herself, into the behavioral patterns that reveal the real motivations beneath. Understanding female psychology is not about sharing her pain or joy. It's about seeing her behavior as a system. Patterns, signals, choices, all revealing what she truly values. You become like an outside analyst who gains clarity precisely because you are outside the emotional web. This is where so many men get lost, trapped in the mistaken belief that they must be emotionally identical to women to understand them. But that's not understanding. That's confusion. The truth? You gain understanding through distance, not immersion. Through observation, not mimicry. You don't need to feel her storm to predict the weather she creates. You don't need to live inside the labyrinth to find the path through it. You need to learn the language of behavior and biology. Because objective truth, what really drives her desires, lies beyond subjective feeling. And when you master this distinction, you transform from a man lost in emotional guesswork into a man with insight, clarity, and power. Here is an uncomfortable truth, one that few men acknowledge. Sometimes, the people you're trying to understand are the last reliable sources of information about themselves. Women themselves often don't fully understand what drives their own desires, motivations, and behaviors. They live inside their subjective experience, a swirling storm of emotions, desires, fears, and contradictions. Try as they might, they cannot step outside that whirlwind to see the patterns clearly. They feel confusion, frustration, and at times even shame about their own actions. Imagine being trapped inside a maze without a map. You wander, you try different paths, some lead to dead ends, others to brief glimpses of clarity. But without stepping back to see the whole shape, you remain lost. Women self-reporting about their desires works much the same way. It's limited by the emotional fog around them, by social pressures, and by their unconscious programming. They want to be seen as reasonable, moral, and emotionally mature. That's normal. So when asked what they want, they often say the right things. I want respect. I want kindness. I want honesty and communication. Beautiful ideals. But their behavior sometimes sends a different message. They pursue partners who challenge their patience, even hurt them emotionally. They stay in relationships filled with turmoil despite professing a desire for stability. Because unconscious motivations, rooted in biology and psychological programming, operate beneath conscious awareness. They can't fully explain why they feel drawn to certain men. They can't consciously reconcile why their actions contradict their words. They are not lying, they are trapped in the limits of their own minds. This is why relying solely on what women say is risky. It's like reading a diary written by a dreamer, beautiful, heartfelt, but incomplete and sometimes contradictory. For a man who wants to truly understand female psychology, the key is not to take self-reports at face value. You must look deeper, past the conscious narrative, to the unconscious patterns revealed by consistent behavior. This is not about distrust or manipulation. It's about wisdom, the wisdom to see that even she may not be the best architect of her own desires. Because emotions cloud judgment. Social conditioning shapes what she says she wants. And unconscious programming determines what she actually pursues. When you accept this, you free yourself from trying to decode words alone. You stop chasing conflicting signals. You stop being misled by emotional turbulence. Instead, you become the clear-eyed observer who understands that her words are a surface reflection, sometimes honest, sometimes filtered. But her behavior, her choices, her actions, reveal the deeper story. And with this understanding comes freedom. You no longer need to guess or plead for clarity because the patterns become unmistakable. You learn to read her unconscious programming in real time. You become fluent in the silent language of desire and motivation. They can't fully explain why they feel drawn to certain men. They can't consciously reconcile why their actions contradict their words. They are not lying, they are trapped in the limits of their own minds. This is why relying solely on what women say is risky. It's like reading a diary written by a dreamer, beautiful, heartfelt, but incomplete and sometimes contradictory. For a man who wants to truly understand female psychology, the key is not to take self-reports at face value. You must look deeper, past the conscious narrative, to the unconscious patterns revealed by consistent behavior. This is not about distrust or manipulation. It's about wisdom, the wisdom to see that even she may not be the best architect of her own desires. Because emotions cloud judgment. Social conditioning shapes what she says she wants. And unconscious programming determines what she actually pursues. When you accept this, you free yourself from trying to decode words alone. You stop chasing conflicting signals. You stop being misled by emotional turbulence. Instead, you become the clear-eyed observer who understands that her words are a surface reflection, sometimes honest, sometimes filtered. But her behavior, her choices, her actions, reveal the deeper story. And with this understanding comes freedom. You no longer need to guess or plead for clarity because the patterns become unmistakable. You learn to read her unconscious programming in real time. You become fluent in the silent language of desire and motivation. Instead, you respond to the reality she reveals through her actions, and that changes everything. To truly understand the behavior and desires of women, we must step back, way back. not just a few years or decades, but hundreds of thousands of years, deep into the story of human evolution itself. Because female psychology, like all human psychology, is shaped by biology, by the forces of evolution. Long before modern society and culture took shape, our ancestors faced a brutal world. Survival wasn't guaranteed. Resources were scarce. Threats lurked in every shadow. Reproduction, the most fundamental drive, came with enormous risks and costs. Women, especially, carried a heavy biological burden. Pregnancy, childbirth, and child-rearing required immense investment. Not just physical, emotional, social, and strategic commitment to ensuring offspring survived and thrived. This reality shaped the female mind and behavior in profound ways. Evolutionary psychologists call this biological programming. It's a set of unconscious mechanisms hardwired to maximize survival and reproductive success over countless generations. A blueprint that drives what women seek in mates, what qualities signal safety, strength, and potential for enduring commitment. Men and women face different reproductive challenges. Men could father many offspring with minimal biological investment. Women, with limited eggs and lengthy childbearing periods, had to be highly selective. This is why women often look for indicators of genetic fitness, qualities like dominance, status, resource acquisition, and protective ability. These traits historically increased the chances their children would survive and pass on their genes. It explains why a woman might feel attracted to a man who exudes confidence or challenge even if he doesn't always seem emotionally available. Why stability, kindness, or emotional accessibility, while important, aren't the sole drivers of attraction. Because beneath conscious preferences lies biological programming honed by millennia of sexual selection. Sexual selection is evolution's way of shaping behaviors that improve reproductive success. While natural selection favors survival traits, sexual selection favors traits that attract mates and secure reproductive opportunities. This programming operates mostly below conscious awareness. Women often feel torn between what they think they want and what their biology is wired to respond to. It creates the contradictions we see. Desires for emotional closeness paired with attraction to challenge and dominance. Wishes for stability alongside pursuit of excitement and unpredictability. Modern society, with all its cultural layers and expectations, has not erased these ancient programs. They remain, invisible and powerful, shaping female psychology to this day. Understanding this evolutionary foundation is key to decoding female behavior. It shows why certain traits generate attraction across cultures and time. It reveals that many female desires are not negotiable preferences, they are biological imperatives. For men, this insight means seeing female psychology not as a puzzle of conflicting emotions, but as a map of deep-seated evolutionary strategies. It means understanding that attraction is not just about being nice or available. It involves demonstrating strength, confidence, and self-possession in ways that align with these ancient biological cues. This knowledge doesn't diminish women's complexity or humanity. It honors the power of biology while recognizing the role of culture and individual differences. But when you grasp the biological programming behind female behavior, everything becomes clearer. You see the roots of attraction, desire, and relationship dynamics laid bare by evolution's hand. And with that clarity comes the power to navigate relationships with wisdom, confidence, and respect. Female behavior reveals consistent patterns not only in romantic relationships but across all areas of life, finance, parenting, workplace, friendship, and communication. Although women may express ideals such as equality, fairness, and emotional support, their actions often reflect underlying biological programming centered on competition, status, and mate selection. In finance, what she spends on often signals priorities beyond functionality, status, attraction, social positioning. In the workplace, women might advocate for collaboration yet compete fiercely for male attention and advancement. Even in friendships, where loyalty and trust are valued, covert competition and manipulation often play a role. Understanding these patterns helps predict how women will act and react, cutting through the surface to the real motivations beneath. Women's behavior also serves as a test, an unconscious challenge to a man's psychological strength and self-respect. Emotional pressure, resistance, and drama are not attempts to control or punish but ways to evaluate if a man maintains his boundaries and priorities in the face of discomfort. A man who bends to every emotional request risks losing respect and attraction. One who holds firm, respecting both himself and the relationship's long-term health, earns deeper admiration and stability. This dynamic unfolds in romantic relationships, friendships, and professional interactions alike. Male strength is measured by the ability to remain centered under pressure, resist manipulation, and prioritize authentic values over immediate emotional accommodation. Resorting to emotional management, trying to soothe, fix, or accommodate female feelings, often backfires. Women's emotional states frequently contradict their deeper desires, meaning attempts to please temporarily often increase dissatisfaction long-term. Providing more attention when she feels neglected can feel smothering, offering more security when she feels unstable can fuel a craving for excitement. Accommodating controlling behavior often invites more control. True emotional harmony emerges not from appeasement but from maintaining authentic boundaries and fostering conditions that generate real attraction, respect, and security. This counterintuitive truth requires men to redefine what support looks like: less emotional reaction, more unwavering presence. Modern culture idealizes love as emotional attunement and endless empathy, the idea that understanding means sharing feelings, smoothing every conflict, and prioritizing harmony. But real female psychology challenges these romantic ideals. Women's attraction often conflicts with their conscious emotional preferences, rooted instead in biological programming that values psychological dominance, strength, and challenge. Blindly following romantic advice focusing on just be yourself, communication is key, or treat her like a princess often reduces attraction instead of increasing it. Escaping this trap means abandoning naive expectations and embracing a strategic, behavior-focused mindset, seeing love as a dynamic interplay of power, respect, and authentic connection rather than an exhausting emotional balancing act. How do you apply these insights? Start by becoming a keen observer rather than an emotional reactor. Watch actions, choices, and consistent behavioral patterns rather than reacting to what's said or felt in the moment. Develop psychological boundaries that protect your values and priorities, even if it causes temporary displeasure. Learn to recognize tests and resist manipulation without retreating or escalating. Understand that attraction and respect grow through demonstrating strength, confidence, and self-possession aligned with biological imperatives, not through emotional accommodation or pleasing. This approach doesn't make you cold or indifferent, it makes you wise and empowered. It liberates you to build healthier relationships founded on genuine connection, mutual respect, and lasting attraction, free from confusion, frustration, and emotional exhaustion. Now that you know the truth, the hidden patterns, the biological programming, the power of observation, are you ready to see women clearly? To stop guessing and start understanding? The choice is yours. Step into clarity. Master the language of behavior. Build relationships rooted in respect, attraction, and authenticity. Don't settle for confusion or frustration any longer. Embrace the power of knowledge and transform your life. Start today. Observe more. React less. And watch everything change.